based on true stories. Share your own journey at OurSilentStories at hotmail.com. Our Silent Stories, where healing begins.
I used to believe that being a good mother meant staying, that love was sacrifice, that if I endured the pain quietly, somehow my children would grow up safe, untouched by it. I was wrong. He never hit me when they were watching, but they saw the way I flinched when he walked by. They saw how I stopped laughing, how I whispered instead of speaking. Children notice everything. Even when you think you're hiding it, they see it in your eyes. I told myself I was protecting them, that if I stayed, they'd have a roof, a father, a normal home. But it wasn't a home. It was a quiet battlefield, and I was losing. Nights were the hardest. After the shouting, the slamming doors, the silence that followed, I'd walk into their rooms, kiss their foreheads, whisper, "It's okay." But it wasn't. My daughter would sometimes crawl into my bed, pressing her tiny hand against my chest. "Mommy, your heart's going too fast," she'd say. I'd smile and tell her, "I'm just tired." But inside, I was breaking. I remember one night so clearly. He'd been drinking, angry about something small, a bill, maybe, or a word I said wrong. The kids were in their rooms, pretending to sleep. I stood by the sink, hands trembling, while he threw words like knives. I tried not to cry, because crying made it worse. When he finally left the kitchen, I stayed there, staring at the faucet, trying to breathe. Then I felt a small tug on my sleeve. It was my son, only 10 years old. His eyes were wide, scared, but steady. "Mom?" he whispered. "Please don't cry again." That's when I broke, because I realized I wasn't protecting them. They were protecting me. And that's not what childhood should be. I barely slept that night. I sat on the floor of my closet with the door closed, just breathing, shaking, crying quietly into my knees. I thought about all the times I'd told myself to wait, for the right moment, for the kids to be older, for him to change. But change never came. So the next morning, I made breakfast like I always did. Pancakes, orange juice, a smile painted on my face. But inside, I was done pretending. When he left for work, I told the kids to pack a small bag. "We're going on a trip," I said. They looked confused, but they didn't ask questions. I called a friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. She didn't hesitate. "Come," she said. My hands shook as I packed. Every drawer I opened felt like letting go of another piece of fear. I left the keys on the counter, took one last look around the house, the walls that had witnessed too much, and whispered goodbye. We drove for hours. The kids slept most of the way. I remember watching the rearview mirror, expecting to see his car, but it never appeared. When the sun began to set, we reached my friend's house. She opened the door before I even knocked. She hugged me so tightly I couldn't hold the tears anymore. That night, we slept in one bed, me and the kids. For the first time, the silence in the room didn't scare me. It felt clean. The days that followed weren't easy. There were court papers, therapy sessions, Nights I cried until dawn. But we were free. The kids adjusted faster than I did. They laughed again. My son started drawing pictures, always of sunshine. My daughter began humming when she played. I realized that healing doesn't always begin when you leave. Sometimes it begins when your children start smiling again. I used to think I'd ruined their childhood. But one night, years later, my daughter, now grown, told me something I'll never forget. She said, "Mom, you didn't ruin anything. You showed us what strength looks like." I cried for hours after that, because for so long, I believed I was weak. But strength isn't the absence of fear. It's moving through it, even when you're terrified. Now, every morning when I wake up, I make coffee and watch the light spill across my kitchen table. My home is small but peaceful. The walls don't echo with shouting anymore. The silence now feels warm. Sometimes I still think about that woman I used to be, the one who stayed for her children. I want to tell her she was brave even then, because love makes us stay. But courage, real courage, helps us go.